Good evening and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Just Daf It. Tonight we're doing Daf Gittin Daf Hey number 25. We're going to talk about the concept of Breira. Breira means that something happens after the fact that we assume that's what you intended originally when you made a statement, when you did an action. We'll see how it plays into Gittin. Let's get started. The bottom of Chavdal Amud Beis. I'm a Rav, about 6 or 7 lines from the bottom. I'm a Rav. Kulan postan bakuna chutz min arishon. Well, we mentioned 4 cases in our Mishnah. They're all puzzle. The Gittin are all puzzle. The first case where someone basically teaching scribes how to write a get, and he said the right names, but it wasn't to teach. And there was a second case where he wrote a get, but then he decided not to divorce his wife, and someone else in his city found the get, and he had the same wife, the same husband, the same name. His wife has the same name as this person's wife, and he had the same name as this person who wrote the get. And the third case was where he had 2 wives with the same name. He wrote for one and wanted to give it to the other one. And the fourth case was where he said, upon making the get, he said to the scribe, write the get, and I'll choose to give it to whichever one of my wives. Both have the same name. I chose. All cases are possible. So Rav says, Kulan poslin bekahuna chutz min arishon. We're going to learn later on in the Masechta that even if it's not a real Gerushin Midoraisa, right? A Kohen is not allowed to marry a Grusha. That's an Isra in the Torah. But he's not, but besides the Isra Doraisa, if she's really a Grusha, even if it's called Reyach HaGet, it's similar to having a Gerushin. It wasn't a halakhically valid Gerushin, but in a certain way it was similar to a Gerushin. So therefore, it's called Reyach HaGet. And the Rabbanan forbade a woman who had this done to her for a Kohen to marry her. So even though all these Gittim are psulim, which ones have the din of Reyach HaGet? So Rav says they all are Reyach HaGet, except the first one. The first one was just teaching the scribe what to do. That doesn't. Hold on a second. Thought it was my fire or something like that. It's really a sandwich maker. Okay. So there's a din of Reyach HaGet, which so Rav says all the last 3 cases are puzzle because of Reyach HaGet. It's too similar to a get. A Kohen can't marry a woman like that, except the first case, which wasn't even real get. The Shmuel Amar Af Rishon Ami Posel. He says all 4 cases have a din of Reyach HaGet, and if a woman got that get, she again would be not allowed to marry a Kohen. As a Shmuel follows his own reasoning. The Amar Shmuel, Kalmak Mishano Chum get posel. Anytime the Chum said a get is posel, it also posels. It also makes the woman unable to marry a Kohen. The Chalitza, psula posalta mina achen. In every chalitza, we learn in Masechet Yevamos, certain times the chalitza is done, but it's not done the halachically right way. Nonetheless, it also has a din chalitza, a reya chalitza. It's similar to a chalitza, and therefore, let's say there's 4 brothers who could do yibum or chalitza. One of them does a chalitza psula, so it ruins her for the other brothers, and no one can do yibum with her anymore. You have to do another chalitza midoraisa. B'marava Amri, in Eretz Yisrael they said Mishmei de Rabbi Lazar, small v'layla psulos uposos. If she takes off the shoe from his left foot, halach is supposed to take off the right foot, or you do that at night. So that's a chalitza psula, and it actually apostles the woman from all the brothers. Katan van pilya psulos ve'en psulos. But if the brother was a katan, he wasn't 13 years old, and he did chalitza, or she did chalitza with a sock. Psulos ve'en poslos. It's puzzle, but it's not called a chalitza psula, and another brother can do yibum. Ziri Amar, back to Gittin. Ziri Amar kulan in post and chutz min achron. He says all the cases in the Mishnah of Gittin do not passel the woman for marrying a Kohen, except the last one, because that's pretty similar. It's a suffix, whether it's actually good or not. We'll see it's in a breira. V'chein amar Rav Asi, kulan in post and chutz min achron. The only one passes the last one. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, afa achron ami in a post. Rabbi Yochanan says even the last case does not passel, because we'll see Rabbi Yochanan does not hold of breira. As Rabbi Yochanan follows his own reasoning. Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, achin shechalku lekuchos hein machzirin zel zeh b'yovel. Brothers who inherit from their father's estate. So the halacha is when you inherit something, you divide up the estate. Let's say there's only 2 brothers, neither of them is a bechor, you divide it half and half. So what happens is that it's not considered that retroactively whatever they got was meant to go to them. It just means that it was in a state, and they're like people who sold to each other. And therefore, right, the halacha is if you sell something to someone, an ancestral land to somebody, it goes back to them at Yovel. So therefore, again, at Yovel, everything goes back to Tfisas Habayit, and then you have to redivide it. So you see another proof that Yochanan doesn't hold of Brera. If he held of Brera, it would say, Hoover Darla Marfreya. Retroactive would say, this son got what he was supposed to get, what the father intended to give him. It wouldn't have to go back to Yovel. But Sricha, you need both teachings of Rabbi Yochanan that he doesn't hold of Brera. It's mar baha Rabbi Yochanan dein Brera mishum d'vayinan la lishma. When it comes to Gittin, he says it doesn't pass all, even with the Rabbanan, it's not considered a get because it's din of lishma. It has to actually be done lishma. When you say write a get for whichever wife I choose to divorce, so you have to consciously have lishma, have in mind that woman. So it's not even a safek because I didn't have in mind the woman at all. I said whichever one I'll choose. I have to have in mind when I'm writing the get which get woman it is. So I didn't have in mind anything, so it can never work. I'm a hasam mecharu, but over there, mecharu damarachman alahader biyovel avayirushma tanalo. Right? The Torah says by when you sell an ancestral land, it goes back at Yovel. But if maybe Yerusha is considered to be Brera, we consider that when I inherit something, that's what my father intended that I should get, or a matan or a present. Right? Lo, v'yashmin and sada. And if you just told me the halacha by sada, when you inherit from your fields or from your father, there we say it goes back at Yovel, mishum d'lechumra. Because really, maybe it's not because he doesn't hold of Brera, it's because he's not sure what halacha is in Brera. So there's a safek l'chumra. So therefore, you have to, the safek in dinim mominus. So therefore, at Yovel, you have to actually redistribute it. Inam mikitchila. And what? If we go l'chumra, and here also by Gittin, right? Rabbi Yochanan says that doesn't passel because, again, we go l'chumra and we assume she's not divorced. We assume she's not divorced because of safek. So we go l'chumra. Safek deraisa l'chumra. We go l'chumra. We're not sure, and she's not divorced. Not because of ein brera. Inam miketchila. Alternatively, maybe the reason by Yerusha is over there is maybe the whole din of Yerusha. There is no concept of my father had in mind to give it over to me. It's like we're dividing it up the first time right now. It's like a new acquisition. Aval hacha emolo, but maybe here by Gittin, I would say there is a din of Brera, and therefore it would be a valid get, Sricha. That's why I'd say in both cases there's no Brera. Now this is going to be problematic because it's very clear from the Gemara here of Yochanan, we pass on Rabbi Yochanan, that there's definitely no din of Brera. But we're going to see the maskan of the Gemara that really there is Brera. Mido Rice. So we're going to have to try to reconcile that fully in Enoch Ben Sion, 8 minute in shir. After this year, you're not going to want to miss it. It really lays down the foundations about Safek Rice, Allah Humra, Koach de Tera Adif. A lot of important things about the Chay, what exactly is Tevel. It's really fundamental shir. You don't want to miss it. Ba'minei Rav Hoshai and Rav Yehuda. Rav Hoshai asked Rav Yehuda, Amar Lavlar, Kosovli Le'ezo Shetete Pesach Tchila. He has two wives. Both named Rachel, and he says, write a get for me, whichever one enters the door first. I'm going to divorce them. I guess he seems a pretty bored guy. I don't know, he likes divorcing his wife. Whichever one comes in first, I don't know, he hates them equally. He answered back to him, it's obvious. Yes, sir, Mikan. Our Mishnah says, the fourth case in the Mishnah. Write for me again, whichever one I decide later on to divorce. She's Meguresha. That's possible, Garish. But Alma ain't Brera. So you see from that case in the Mishnah, there's no Brera. Here also, ain't Brera. We don't say retroactively. The woman who walked through the door is the one I wanted to write the get for. Asive asked the following question. The father standing in Yerushalayim. He wants his sons to come. He calls them on the phone. He says, come to Yerushalayim. Whichever one comes first, right, they're going to be nimne, they're going to be listed on the Korban Pesach, and they're going to be part of the Korban Pesach. And I guess whoever's not is not. I'm shechting it right now, right? Really, you have to be nimne, or you have to be listed before the shechita. But he's basically saying that I'm shechting it with having in mind that whoever comes first, he has 10 sons, whichever one of the 10 sons come first, they're going to be nimne. So he lists, that's what he writes. He doesn't have to write it. He has to state it or have that in mind. Whichever one of 10 sons comes first, I have them in mind when I'm shechting the Korban Pesach. Once the first brother comes to Yerushalayim, after the father shechted it, so not only is he counted, but his brothers, he is zocha, he credits his other 9 brothers also being part of it. So you see, anyway, the fact that the first brother gets, so he doesn't know who it's going to be, right? Which son is going to be. We see Brera. Brera works. Amar le Hoshaya, Bri, Hoshaya, my son, my inyan psachim is Gittin. You can't compare this case in psachim to Gittin. Hayet Maralam Rabbi Yochanan, Kedei Lazar's and mitzvos. There, they were all 10 sons already listed on the current page. He was just telling them to get them, to encourage them to be fastidious with mitzvos, to do it as quickly as possible. How do you know that's true? Daikanami, right? It's precise reading. He's Zocha himself, and along his brothers alongside him. If they all were listed, all 10 brothers were listed, Shapir, it makes sense. Right? So, fine. Maybe Brera works for him, but the 9 other brothers weren't included on the listing. If they weren't included in the listing, how does it work for the other brothers? You can enlist yourself on the Karm Pesach, or you can remove yourself from the list before the Shechita. Once it's shechted, you can't do that anymore. So it must be that all 10 were listed. It's not a case of rare. Tananami Hachi, the Brisa which confirms this, Maisa v'kidmu banos lebanim, inimsu banos zrizos banim shvelim. There was a case like this, where the father made a contest out of it, and he included his daughters, and the daughters actually came before the sons, and the daughters were considered zrizim, they were considered fastidious, hasty to do mitzvahs, and the sons not. So you see, it was only an idea of good midos, trying to make his children, right, zrizim b'mitzvahs, not because of Brera. Amar Abaye, so Abaye made this following reaction. Kaboy minei tola b'das acher, and kapashit lei tola b'das atzma, v'hadar mosiv lei tola b'das acher. The original question was what? Can I write a get for whichever wife, they have the same name, comes out of the door first? Right? That's not tola b'das atzma. It's not like our Mishnah where he says, whichever one I decide on later. He's saying whichever one comes first. That's not up to him, whichever one comes first, up to whoever the wife comes in first. Right? That was the question. And then he answered, or Yehuda answered from a Mishnah, which is told das atzmo, where basically it was up to him, whichever one he chooses later. And then again, he asked him a question from Tol das acherim, right? The case of Pesach, where seemingly was dependent on whichever child raced first to Yerushalayim. And obviously the Gemara assumes they're different. There should be different answers. Just because you say Brera or Ein Brera on one does not mean you say Brera or Ein Brera on the other one. Amar Rava, so Rava says back to Abaye, my question, Dilma demand is like Brera, lo shna tol b'das atzmo, shna tol b'das acher. Is like Brera. Manda leis like Brera, lo shna tol b'das atzmo, lo shna tol b'das acher, leis like Brera. Rava says, what's the problem? Who says there's a difference, right? If you hold of Brera, you hold it in both cases, whether it's das atzmo, das acher. If you don't hold of Brera, you hold it in either case. So I'm only going to Mashar the Rav. Mashar is back to Rav of how he's going to prove there's a difference. So Rabbi Yehuda, the told das atzmo leis like Brera, told das acher is like Brera. Rabbi Yehuda holds of Brera. We'll see in a second where. If you're told das atzmo, if you make it dependent on your own decision, but when it's dependent on someone else's actions, he doesn't. He holds of Brera. He doesn't hold of Brera when it's dependent on your decision, but someone else's decision, he does hold of Brera. Told das atzmo leis like Brera. So what are the two cases? Where he decides himself, the Sanya, he buys wine from the Kusim. These are Kuthian people, uncouth people. They're not fully Jewish. They're less believable than Amaratzim. It's not even Demai. We don't say Rov Amaretz Meister. Rov Amaretz Meister, most Amaratzim, they take off Shumas Meister. That's why if the subject Shumas Meister is a homosexual Demai, it's only Chayim and Shumas Meister Derabbanan. And Kusim, it's a Chiyav D'Oraisa. So we assume they didn't take off Shumas Meister. So Omar Shnei Lugin, he doesn't have time. It's before Shabbos. He doesn't have time to take off Shumas and Meitzos, and he wants to drink from the barrel. So what does he say? Shnei Lugin Shani Asil Hafresh. After Shabbos, I'm not going to drink the whole barrel now and on Shabbos. After Shabbos, half of it will be left over. So, or some of it will be left over. Shnei Lugin Shani Asil Hafresh Harei and Truma. At the end of the barrel, I'll take off 2 Lugin. There's 100 Lugin in there. for Truma. Asara Meiser Rishon, 10 will be for Meiser Rishon for the Levi. Tisha Meiser Sheni, and 9 will be for Meiser Sheni, which basically removes the status of Tevel. Umeichel Vishosim Yad, Tabachol Hema base. And therefore, by doing that, he has desanctified it. He's able to drink right away on Shabbos, for Shabbos, on Shabbos. It's Remeir's opinion. Right? Because we assume that whatever he decided afterwards, he makes his declaration before he drinks it. And then the 2 lugin that he takes at the end of the barrel for Truma, as Hover or Dalim Afrei retroactively, we realize that was what he meant. Right? Because you have to declare, you have to say, when I talk about this, when you make something Truma, you have to declare, this is Truma. It's like an action. It's a hafrasha. It's a mitzvah hafrasha, and there's a halos that's associated with it, where it becomes Truma. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Omrim, Tol B'das Acherim. Sorry, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Ostrin. They say you can't do this. Now, the Gemara assumes the reason that all 3 Tanaim say you can't do this is because of Breira. They don't hold of Breira. That's the reason you can't do it, because we can't say Truma has to be a clear declaration on being Mafresh Truma. And I can't say now being Mafresh Truma something that I'll take after Shabbos, a day later. Tol B'das Acherim Islay. Breira. What's the example that Rabbi Yehuda holds? Tol B'das Acherim, there is Breira. The Snan, Mahi B'osan Yamim. This is a Mishnah later on that says a man says to his wife, "You're migureshes. You're going to be divorced from me." He hands her a get. Me'achshav, now, when I die. He wants to make sure his wife gets a get. He doesn't want her to fall to evil. So he says retroactively, Me'achshav, you're going to be divorced when I die. So those days now until he dies, right? What's her halacha? What is she treated like? She's treated like a married woman because she's not yet divorced yet. However, when he dies, the get retroactively happens, right? From when he gave it to her. So that's a case of Breira, because the get only takes effect, right? It's only hofra when he actually dies. If he never actually died, it's never a get yet. So, I mean, really, there's a fundamental question over here. This is every case of Tanai, right? A case when you make a stipulation, really, it's always Breira. That's a more general question that I'm not going to deal with now. Really, every case of Tanai is Breira. But that's something to note over here, that every case of Tanai really is Breira. But you see, that's Tola B'das Acher, that's Tola in Hashem. Hashem wants him to die. It's up to Hashem. It's not him. He doesn't decide when he's going to die, and therefore he holds a Breira over there. It works. Amar Leim Rasharsha Rava, and Rav Sharsha asked Rava a further question. How Reb Shimon also, the Tola B'das Ha'atzmo Leis Breira. When it comes to something that depends on my own decision, there's no Breira. Tola B'das Acher is Breira. Tola B'das Ha'atzmo Leis Breira. How do you know there's no Breira? Hada Amran, like the case. Reb Shimon is one of the Tanoim that asar, that say you can't do it by truma. Told das acherim islay breira. How do you know? The sanya of braysa already bolech almanash yirtza ava. He says to a woman, I'm going to kaddish you. I'm going to kaddish you through bia. One of the ways I'm going to kaddish a woman is through bia. I'm going to be bowl you now, and I want to do kaddish to you on condition that my father is happy with what I did. He doesn't know his father's going to be happy. According to Tanakama, even if the father does not fulfill the tanai, he doesn't want it, she's mikudeshes, because the Gemara says that Ein Adam Osa Bilaso Bilasnos. He doesn't want his bil. People don't want to be promiscuous, and he really had in mind, even if his father really doesn't want, he still wants it to be a bia of kedusha. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Omer Rabbi Shimon Ratzav Mikudeshes Lo Ratzav Ein Mikudeshes. It actually depends on what the father wants. Tomorrow he bowl her, and then tomorrow he asks his father, "Did you want it or not?" If his father wants it, she's mikudeshes. Now, that's again a tanai. It's a stipulation. It happens later on. It's not decided yet that the father's going to decide until it happens. And that's told with Asachan. That's told in Dasa the father. See, Breira does work. Amar lei, ben Rabbi Yehuda, ben Rabbi Shimon, loshna told with Atzmo, v'loshna told with Asacherim, islehu Breira. So Rava answers back, no. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon really always hold of Breira. Breira works, even on the rice, whether it's told with Atzmo or told with Asacherim. The reason in the case of Truma they say it doesn't work, Ostring and Tani Taima, Amrulo, we have a Brisa which details what the discussion was. Amrulo, the Remeir, Yatamod, the Shno Ivaka Anod, Vininstance Shosa Tvalim Mafre. They don't agree with Breira. Breira, they could hold of Breira. The problem is that the barrel might break and all the wine will spill out, and he'll have nothing left to be Mafresh and Maisos. And then Lemafreya, it turns out he drank Tevel, which is Nisr Del Raisa. Amar Lahem Ukshivaka. Remeir allowed it because he holds of Breira, and he says we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to choshe say it's going to break we can rely on the fact that it's probably most barrels don't break, and I'll have what after Shabbos, I'll have what to go ahead and be mafresh trumas and maestros. Hope you enjoyed tonight's shir. Stay tuned for Enoch Ben Sion, where we talk about the halachas of Breira. Seemingly the Gemara's Maskan, according to Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi unclear, but 3 Tanaim hold Yesh Breira Midoraisa over here. It's only the Rabbanan, or the Shama Yavaka Anod. But our Mishnah is very clear that if he tells the scribe to write a get, whichever wife I would choose, it's not a valid get. The Mishnah says Pasal. Rabbi Yochanan on Chavhem and Aleph Paskin, Ein Breira. And it's pretty clear, Ein Breira in that case. So that's Midoraisa. So why over there do we say Ein Breira? But Midoraisa, we do hold of Breira. And it's further bolstered by a lot of Rishonim, Paskin, Midoraisa, Ein Breira. What about all these Tanaim who hold Midoraisa, Yesh Breira? I'll talk about that, Ian, with Ben Sion coming up next.